Welcome back. Supreme Court announced today that it will take up California's ban on same-sex marriage. The case, it could give the justices the opportunity to rule on whether or not gay Americans have the same constitutional right to marry as heterosexuals. Justices will review a federal appeals court ruling that struck down the state's gay marriage ban. Court will also decide whether Congress can deprive legally married gay couples of federal benefits available to married people, a provision of DOMA, or the Defense of Marriage Act, that limits certain benefits and tax structures to heterosexual couples only. But because marriage is legal in only certain states, their status in the eyes of the federal government is in question. Same-sex marriage is legal, or will be soon, in 9 states. Separately, and this is a different issue, but you see how I think it's somewhat connected, at least on a trending standard. Marijuana is legal for recreational use now in the state of Washington, I believe Colorado as well. Marijuana becomes legal coast to coast in the next 5 years. Is that possible? All right, let's go from a trending standpoint. How significant, and I'll start with you, the court taking it up? And for gay rights advocates, are they more nervous or hopeful that the high court will hear it?
I think they're very excited. You know, we think that there could be something very good out of the Prop 8 decision. They might not go as broad as they could go, but we think with Kennedy we could have a 5-4 decision there. And the DOMA decision is a little more limited. It's not taking into account all of DOMA, which is something I would like to have seen, but a more specific part with doing with these 1,000 federal sort of benefits. Yep. And I think that also stands a good chance of being a positive outcome.
I'm actually nervous about both.
Really?
I am.
But wasn't the prevailing wisdom, Andrew, that the court wasn't going to really take this up here unless they wanted to really send a message? And while it's a conservative court, the idea of individual freedom, et cetera, here, at least if you read the tea leaves, most people, at least that I've seen today, say the fact that they touched this case probably means that they want to expand the rights,
with
not
Prop 8, they could have kept their hands off it and simply said we stand by the lower court, and that would have legalized same-sex marriage in California and thrown a little bit of chaos into some other states. But I think they want to register their opinion on this, and they want everybody to have a chance to sound off on it, which to my mind is one of the causes for concern. I mean, there may be some justification or some rationale for why they think it's not constitutional.
And I've learned the hard way to trying to divine what the court is going is always dangerous, even when we hear the oral arguments. But that said, I don't think I'm going on a limb here to say 5 years ago, Dominic, we were sitting at the state when we were having the debates going on in Albany. We're talking to state lawmakers as the thing unfolded. To me, at least, generationally, all the data supports it, but there's an inevitability to this. At some point in my lifetime, I think all 50 states in this country will allow 2 men and 2 women to get married. And I think more people you talk to realize New York didn't fall into the Atlantic when this happened. The other states didn't as well.
Sure didn't.
And the point is, people should just worry about their own lives and get over it, okay? And for those people that are still obsessed about it, all right, you're entitled to an opinion, but stay out of somebody else's business. That's an overarching vibe. I know it's not universal, but generation by generation, it's becoming more and more accepted. Do you get that same idea with marijuana? That the legalization of it for recreational purposes isn't going to just be Washington and Colorado, but it's going to go beyond those.
I felt like everyone turned and looked at me immediately when the argument turned to marijuana.
I got the munchies. I just asked the question. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a generational thing when it comes to marijuana. I just don't see it. Part of me wants to believe that before the 5 of us are old men, or certainly before we die, that perhaps it will show that the country times are changing. But I'm just not sure about that one, Richard. I think you got a better chance with gay marriage.
Oh, definitely. But I had the same kind of vibe that it's just a matter of when, not if.
I think many skeptics, myself included, of the marijuana law see this for what it is, which is a proxy, back to the term I used in the last segment, I do like proxy, for legalizing drugs. It is the camel's nose under the tent. At first, we were told in the marijuana debate, well, this is just medicinal. We only want to do this for poor suffering people. They need to smoke pot to feel better. Okay, fine. So we swallow that. Now all of a sudden we have 2 states that say, well, you know, let's move the needle a little further and say, well, now, you know, just a certain recreational amount, that's okay. What's next? I mean, there are those of us who are very concerned that we are inching our way towards legalizing drugs. And I said it before and I'll say it again. Drugs are not illegal. Drugs are not bad because they're illegal. They're illegal because they're bad.
They're illegal for many complicated reasons. You know, illegal because they're bad might be the way that you look at it. But I can give you plenty of books on the history of marijuana legalization and criminalization that'll give you
Andrew, you two guys
a deeper view.
But I'll give you the last point on this. From a trending standpoint, from what all the polling says, do we believe in our lifetimes same-sex marriage and marijuana? Forget what we believe or not. Is there an inevitability for both?
If I could pretend to be Nate Silver for a second,
Yes.
I think that gay marriage is inevitable. I think that it's not as clear with marijuana that it's generational change, because as people get older, they might actually take the more conservative position when they have kids. They don't want their kids getting stoned. You know, that's going to be different with gay marriage. So I think that gay marriage, generational, marijuana, which the jury's still
Andrew,
out.
by the way, I think not only are we inching to BFF here, he even brought up Nate Silver. So you guys are.
But I'm about to spoil this because I'm going to disagree. I think that we're going to wind up with states that have the right to allow same-sex marriage and states that are allowed to have legal marijuana
But how do
for
you do the
recreational
latter,
use.
though, Andrew, where the federal government now is in a bind? You have a federal law
I think
as it relates to legalized.
I think eventually the federal government will relax and allow individual states to dictate recreational use, but I don't think you'll ever. But I don't think you'll ever see a 50-state policy where either same-sex marriage is legal in every state or recreational marijuana is legal in every
hard
state.
from a practical standpoint to unring the bell and say the federal government now doesn't have, in effect, overarching power on the prosecution, let's say, of drugs.
Well, I think they can just decide not to prosecute.
It's not going to happen in a million years.
Which is what they might be doing right now in Washington and Colorado.
Well, those states haven't fully implemented, though, yet,
Right.
because they're waiting to see what
Washington has.
Washington
they
did.
signed, and people are smoking legally in Washington as we speak, having more fun than us in Washington State.
Enjoy Washington. All right, we will take a break. When we come back, we're going to stay on politics, but Hillary Clinton specifically. What will her next move be in 2016? And also, how do we get from there to here? I was there when she first ran for Senate in New York, and the adoration of Hillary wasn't on full display then, but a lot has changed in the interim. We'll be right back. Stay with us.